Hi fam, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. My name is Akubeze and I'm a Christian content creator based in Lagos, Nigeria. Back with another episode of my faith series in which we are studying the great examples of faith listed in Hebrews 11 and deep diving into their faith journey. For the past few weeks, we have been studying the faith of Moses, and this week we are kind of continuing on with his journey, but instead, more so looking at the faith of a people. Because if you've been following, Moses was the vessel that God used to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt into, the promised land. So, well, let me say into the wilderness because they didn't quite get to the promised land, but we're going to keep going. So, our anchor scripture for this week is Hebrews 11, verse 29, and Exodus 13 and 14. So, let's get right into it. Hebrews 11, verse 29, it says, "It was by faith that the people of Israel went right through the Red Sea as though they were on dry ground. But when the Egyptians tried to follow, they were all drowned." Immediately the first thing that came to my mind is the exemption that faith gives you. It's something that we've picked up on in other studies, like faith will exempt you. When others say that there's a casting down, you say that there's a lifting up. When there is water and you need to walk through it, you'll be able to walk through it, but somebody else cannot follow that same route. When others say that it's impossible to cross the path, you will find that there will be an exemption for you and you will be able to make it through. And I also thought about the faith to do the impossible, because this is not humanly possible. This is not logical. This is literally miraculous. But by faith, those seemingly impossible things become possible for you. When Pharaoh finally let the people go, God did not lead them along the main road that runs through Philistine territory, even though that was the shortest route to the promised land. God said if the people are faced with a battle, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led them in a roundabout way through the wilderness toward the Red Sea. Thus the Israelites left Egypt like an army ready for battle. So we are told about the long route that they went on, and it was something that we picked up on in Moses' faith journey as well. How, sometimes you have to, not even sometimes, you have to appreciate the long route. You have to appreciate the journey, because by going through all those plagues, by going through all those demonstrations and challenges, and, having to obey God at each interval, it was a way for Moses' faith to continue to be built up. And so we see the same thing with the people of Israel. God said we can't just take them straight to the promised land. If they face a challenge, they'll change their minds. But they need to get to know me. They need to go the roundabout way through the wilderness. And the Israelites left Egypt like an army ready for battle. We mentioned this last week, but it does remind you that you have to fight the good fight of faith. Sometimes it is a fight to preserve your faith. It is a fight to uphold your faith. It is a fight to have faith, especially when it's not coming so quick and easy, especially when you have to take the long route. So Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear to do this. He said, God will certainly come to help you. When he does, you must take my bones with you from this place. The Israelites left Succoth and camped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. This reminds us about another theme that we've seen in, the faith journeys of people like Joseph and Abraham, about how you may not necessarily see the result in your faith. Sometimes faith is about what happens even after you have gone. And so this reminder about, Joseph saying that they should take his bones because he knew God will come and deliver them. And it also reminds us about the faith in his words that we picked up on. So anyways, we are told that the Lord went ahead of them. He guided them during the day with a pillar of cloud, and he provided light at night with a pillar of fire. This allowed them to travel by day or by night, and the Lord did not remove the pillar of cloud or pillar of fire from its place in front of the people. Then the Lord gave these instructions to Moses: order the Israelites to turn back and camp by Pi Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. Camp there along the shore, across from Baal Zephon. Then Pharaoh will think the Israelites are confused. They are trapped in the wilderness. And once again I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after you. I have planned this in order to display my glory through Pharaoh and his whole army. After this, the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites camped there as they were told. Again, reminding us about the long routes, When word reached the king of Egypt that the Israelites had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds. "What have we done, letting all those Israelite slaves get away?" they asked. So Pharaoh harnessed his chariot and called up his troops. He took with him 600 of Egypt's best chariots, along with the rest of the chariots of Egypt, each with its commander. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, so he chased after the people of Israel, who had left with fists raised in defiance. The fight of faith is the fists raised in defiance just made me think of, like, the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, how faith requires resistance on your part sometimes. Faith requires you to fight. Faith requires you to oppose, to defy what they are trying to tell you that is against the Lord's will. We are told that the Egyptians chased after them with all the forces in Pharaoh's army, all his horses and chariots, his charioteers and his troops. The Egyptians caught up with the people of Israel as they were camped beside the shore near Pihahirot, across the Baal Zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up and panicked when they saw the Egyptians overtaking them. They cried out to the Lord, and they said to Moses, "Why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Weren't there enough graves for us in Egypt? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Didn't we tell you that this would happen while we were still in Egypt? We said, 'Leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. It's better to be a slave in Egypt than a corpse in the wilderness.' But Moses told the people, 'Don't be afraid. Just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again. The Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm.'" The long route of faith, that is, I feel like, what we are picking up about this journey of the Israelites, because it's like we noticed with Pharaoh and Moses. Every time he would go back to him, Pharaoh's heart would remain hardened, and it didn't seem like anything was changing. But of course, God kept fighting and God kept proving himself. And so here again, you see that finally they've even escaped. They've left Egypt. And the people are afraid because the Egyptians are now catching up. And of course, their thoughts start coming back to them like, "Oh no, I'm still in captivity. I'd rather be in captivity. I'd rather be in bondage. It's better to be a slave." Imagine saying that. We picked up last week on the value of a helper in your faith. It is interesting that here I see the value of a leader in your faith as well, because when these people are clamoring and wanting to run back into captivity, Moses tells them, "Don't be afraid, just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today." This same Moses that was doubting, by the way. But people need someone to lead their faith, and if you don't have a church community, if you don't have a leader, if you don't have someone that can speak life into you and give you an instruction that you can obey, then you need that, because we see it here. So the Lord told Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to get moving. Pick up your staff and raise your hand over the sea. Divide the water so the Israelites can walk through the middle of the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they will charge in after the Israelites. My great glory will be displayed through Pharaoh and his troops, his chariots and his charioteers. When my glory is displayed through them, all Egypt will see my glory and know that I am the Lord." Then the angel of God, who had been leading the people of Israel, moved to the rear of the camp. The pillar of cloud also moved from the front and stood behind them. That was so interesting to me, because remember in chapter 13, we were told that the pillar never moved. It was just always with them. It never moved from its place in front of them. So for them to see that cloud move, immediately they would have been like, "Wow, something is happening." And that song, "We Need a Move," just came to my mind. Like, you can ask God for a move. Ask God, "I need a move from you." Like, it's allowed in your faith journey. It's encouraged. It's even appreciated, because like, getting a move from God really reinforces your faith, really encourages you, and really empowers you as well. So the cloud settled between the Egyptian and Israelite camps. As darkness fell, the cloud turned to fire, lighting up the night. But the Egyptians and Israelites did not approach each other all night. Then Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the Lord opened up a path through the water with a strong east wind. The wind blew all night, turning the seabed into dry land. So the people of Israel walked through the middle of the sea on dry ground, with walls of water on each side. Then the Egyptians, all of Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and charioteers, chased them into the middle of the sea. But just before dawn, the Lord looked down on the Egyptian army from the pillar of fire and cloud, and he threw their forces into total confusion. He twisted their chariot wheels, making their chariots difficult to drive. Let's get out of here, away from these Israelites, the Egyptians shouted. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt. When all the Israelites had reached the other side, the Lord said to Moses, Raise your hand over the sea again. Then the waters will rush back and cover the Egyptians and their chariots and charioteers. So as the sun began to rise, Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the water rushed back into its usual place. The Egyptians tried to escape, but the Lord swept them into the sea. Then the waters returned and covered all the chariots and charioteers, the entire army of Pharaoh. Of all the Egyptians who had chased the Israelites into the sea, not a single one survived. But the people of Israel had walked through the middle of the sea on dry ground, as the water stood up like a wall on both sides. That is how the Lord rescued Israel from the hand of the Egyptians that day. And the Israelites saw the bodies of the Egyptians washed up on the seashore. When the people of Israel saw the mighty power that the Lord had unleashed against the Egyptians, they were filled with awe before him. They put their faith in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Um, you need a move sometimes. You need a move that can fill a people with awe. You know, God moves, God does mighty things, God does the seemingly impossible. And this story, this study of the faith of the Israelite people is just a reminder that God moves. And yeah, well, next week we'll be continuing with the faith of a people, and we'll be reading Hebrews 11:30 and Joshua 6. And the truth is that as we are studying the faith of a people, I think it's so clear to see that there is value in fellowship, in partnership in our faith walk, because they couldn't have done it without Moses' encouragement. And Moses couldn't have done it without that long journey that God had took him on of, experiencing his power and depending on him. So yeah, I hope you're blessed by the word. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you next week. I love you, but never forget Jesus loves you the most. Bye, fam.